So why do these rules change? All right, there's a strong emphasis on the spirit of the game and the etiquette of the player. If you look right away in Rule 1, the player has a lot of responsibility to play by the rules, to do everything that the spirit of this game was created for. And the rules are also now a little bit more friendlier for the player as well. And so it's kind of a two-way street the way that it's going to go, and these rules are really designed to make play for the player more friendly. Some penalties that we had before are no longer penalties. We will get into those specifically. One of the things that we talk about a lot is virtual certainty. When we're talking about whether or not a ball went into a hazard, well, now virtual certainty is whether or not a player's ball moved. So, I mean, there's some changes there that are actually protecting and helping out the player. The main change of these rules is to promote faster pace of play. And as we go through these changes, you will see a lot of different things that are designed to promote this game to play a little bit quicker, such as the 3-minute search instead of a 5-minute search. So you will see this throughout the new rules as a very common theme. There are relaxed requirements and reduced penalties on the putting green and in bunkers and for accidental occurrences. So the local rule that's in place right now for an accidental movement of the ball on a putting green is now a rule of golf, moving forward in 2019. We also have relaxed rules in bunkers where we can move loose impediments. We can ground our club in certain situations, but not all situations. And then we'll talk about the penalty areas as well, where we have a lot of different things that we can do. We can ground our club, we can take practice swings, we can move loose impediments. So lots of relaxed requirements in the rules moving forward. Determining who or what moved a ball at rest, that's the exact thing that I just talked about with that 95% virtual certainty. Virtual certainty actually has a quantified percentage now. So there's no way to measure it, no way to say that we know what 95% is, but it gives us an idea of what we're talking about with virtual certainty. We need to be 95% sure we're virtual certain of what the fact is. The penalty areas is something that we will discuss, even with all the different golf courses, of how to mark them. What do we do when we're in a penalty area? And please understand, I am going to say water hazard a couple times. I can't get that out of my head. And the terminology is one of those things that's not a big deal. The definitions always are, but the terminology we'll kind of get as we go forward. I'll say teeing ground when it's supposed to be teeing area and so on and so forth, but hopefully you guys will understand that. The simplified dropping and redropping procedures is one of the best things, I believe, in the rules of golf moving forward. Rule 20 currently that we're talking about in 2018 had all these different situations of when to redrop, if the ball moved closer to the hole, if the ball rolled more than 2 club lengths, so on and so forth. That rule has been obliterated. And it is just very simple when we get into these dropping and redropping procedures of what to do. We're going to drop it from knee height into a relief area and play it from that relief area. Pretty simple. And when we get into it, you'll understand it even a little bit more. The unplayable ball in the bunker, there's a new relief option. A lot of people, for many years, thought that there was an unplayable option that you could take the ball out of the bunker and drop it and play from there. The only option that you had that was if you played from your original spot. So if you hit your tee shot into a bunker and took an unplayable, your only option to take it out of that bunker was to go back to the tee. Well, now there is a new option for a 2-stroke penalty that you can take it out of the bunker and drop it back on a line. So if you're a really, really bad bunker player, don't be shy, I'm one of them. If you want a 2-stroke penalty, you can take it out of that bunker and drop it out of there for an unplayable lie. And then we'll talk about advice, the way that equipment has been reclassified, and the stroke and distance local rule, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. It is a local rule. It is not a rule of golf, but we will discuss it as well. For those of you that aren't sure what that rule is, there is a new local rule in place where if you hit a ball out of bounds or if you lose a ball, you're going to estimate that spot where the ball is lost or it went out of bounds, and you can go drop in the fairway equidistant to that spot for a 2-stroke penalty. Local rule, not a rule of golf, but we'll get into that when we get a little bit down the line. This doesn't change. A lot of people have wanted to know, why do we have to play the ball out of a divot in the middle of the fairway? Because we play the ball as it lies. That's the great principle of this game. We have a bad line in the fairway and a good line in the rough. Although I know nobody in here has ever had a good line in the rough. This doesn't happen, I get it. But this is the 2 great principles that the game is predicated on. This is a great quote by Bobby Jones. Golf is the closest game to the game we call life. You get bad breaks from good shots, you get good breaks from bad shots, but you have to play the ball where it lies. Okay? So the rules of golf did discuss whether or not we should take relief from a divot, but some of the things that you have to consider, well, what is a divot? When is it completely grown in? Okay? can't really define what a divot is. You know, it might be 95%, there's that term, grown in, but it's still a divot. Do I get relief? So they really couldn't come to a conclusion on that. And also on the flip side, if we give you relief in a divot, what happens if you hit your ball into the rough and you get a good lie? Well, we're going to have to make you push it down. You know, so if you think about it in those terms, that's why this is not going to change, and it's probably never going to change. We're going to play the ball as it lies. Okay, what makes the rules so complicated? It's a complicated game. It really is. We have different fields every time we tee it up. Okay? Basketball, football, soccer, baseball have generally the same field over and over again. Okay, our playing field is completely different. Okay, and we also have the smallest goal to playing field ratio that there is. We have a 4 1/4 inch cup and acres and acres and acres of field. So, I mean, it is a very complicated game. I can name 4 of these holes. Does anybody know what these holes are? I know number 10 at TPC Scottsdale's on the left. The second hole I don't know. Does anyone know that hole? I tried to reverse search on Google and it came up and said, this is camouflage. I was like, oh, thanks. That doesn't help. 17 at Sawgrass. The fourth one? 18 at Bethpage. And the fifth one? Yeah, I believe that's 6 at Pebble Beach, isn't it? Is it 8? It's 8, you're right, 8. So if anybody can come up with that one, you'll get the bonus prize of the day of a rules book. Okay, there are 2 simultaneous sets of rules in one document, match play, stroke play. We go over these, we have 2 different games that we're going to play, but the rules discuss both of them. That's complicated. Okay, we have to figure out how to discern the differences of what's going on there. And the rules are written for efficiency. So there's code words that we have that don't change from what we did before. Must, may, the, a, things like that are very important when we're talking about specifics. The ball, a ball, must. Must means you have to do it. Should, optional. Things like that are important to be aware of when we are reading these rules. A couple of words that are important moving forward for 2019. Deliberate and accidental. Deliberate's used 92 times in the rules of golf. Okay? There's a lot of rules currently that talk about intent. Okay? What this is talking about now moving forward is we have to have deliberate actions to have a violation. Okay? Accidental actions are not going to be a violation. If we accidentally move our ball, for the most part, there are some exceptions we'll talk about, for the most part, there's going to be no penalty. But look for these words specifically in the rules when we are looking up answers or trying to figure out what's going on with a certain situation. There are compound, complex sentences, have multiple meanings, but we break them into bullets to make it a little bit easier to understand moving forward. We just had paragraph after paragraph after paragraph in the current rules, but now it's kind of set in bullets. It's a little bit easier to understand. More information that way. But we still need to look for these unique meanings. Again, those code words will guide us along that way. And as we move on and we get specific, we will talk more about these different things. Okay, so let's look at an example here of what makes this game complicated. Okay? The player has a ball in play again only when he or she plays the original ball or another ball from the teeing area. So we've got a ball in play and something happened. We're trying to get a ball back into play. This is just an example that we came up with. Look at all these situations that cover this. Okay, we've got an original ball played from the teeing area. We've got a replacement ball from the original ball on the golf course. We've got to replace or drop the original ball on the golf course. We've got to drop the original ball in the teeing area. There's all kinds of different situations that we need to cover that seems like it's very complicated, but if we follow the terminology that we have, it can be very simple. Okay, so whether or not we get a ball in play on the golf course is going to depend on these certain words. We got replace, drop, places that we're going to talk about specifically. There is a difference between replacing and placing a ball. Okay, and there's also an important situation that we need to talk about when we drop a ball. When is that ball in play? When does it need to be redropped? Okay, all these situations can happen, but they're definitely not as much as it has happened before in the past with Rule 20 that we talked about with redropping, when a ball rolls somewhere where it shouldn't. That is not going to happen as much since we're going to be dropping at knee height moving forward. Okay, this is very important. Please pay attention to this one. Understand what is there, but also understand what is not there. Okay? If it doesn't say then you may not, then you may. Okay, this is very important, and they really pointed this out at our seminar that I went to with Doug in Atlanta in September, that if it doesn't say that you can't do it, then you can. Okay? What's a good example of that? Where does it say you can use another club other than a putter and the putting green in the rules? Is this allowed in the rules? Yeah, you can use any club you want on a putting green, but where does it say it? It doesn't. It doesn't say it. It doesn't say you can't, so it's allowed. Okay, subroutines are often used when we talk about lifting, replacing, and dropping. So we'll have a rule situation that will come up, we'll deal with it, but then we might have to have a replace, a redrop, or a lifting situation that we have to go to a different rule. It's a lot easier to follow now, trust me. I know me just yelling this stuff to you right now seems like it's kind of complicated, but it really is simple. Once we get into the rules, you'll understand it quite a bit. Exceptions are common in the rules. Okay? You'll see this over and over again. The word except and exception is used 199 times in the new rules. 211 times the word but is used. Okay? So what this is telling you to do is if you read a situation and you think you have an answer, keep reading. There might be a but in there. There might be an exception. Okay? Finish the reading of the rule that you're looking at and you might come to a different answer. I would know that because I would have got another question right on the test if I would have kept reading. Different rules can and often do conflict with each other. We've talked about this before. Rules can seem like they're very contradictory to each other, but there's one important concept. Authority overrides prohibition. And we will talk about that a lot. So if a rule says you can do it, it's going to override a rule that says you can't. Seems complicated. Good example of this is lifting your ball. Can you lift your ball when it's in play in the general area? Usually no. You got to play the ball as it lies. The putting green rule is an exception. Authority, the putting green says you can lift your ball. This is a very common exception, but we'll go over, and you'll see it over and over within the rules when authority overrides prohibition. It's an important concept to hold on to. Okay, the rulemaking strategies and standards have been changed to achieve these fair results. So common sense is what we're talking about here. Most of your rulings moving forward is if you think that this shouldn't be a penalty, it probably isn't because you're using common sense. It really is going to be pretty simple that way. So you'll see some situations that you're like, that shouldn't be a penalty, and you look up the rules. Well, it's not. Okay? Common sense really drove a lot of these changes for 2019. Believe it or not, they have some common sense people at the USGA. All right, so here's some things that we're going to be talking about. Some action and fact-based, so like order of play, whose ball is away. Okay, that's a fact. We know whose ball is away. Okay, out of bounds. Is the ball out of bounds? That's a fact. We know if the ball is out of bounds or not. If a ball is sitting on an out of bounds line, is it out of bounds? Yes. As long as part of that ball is not touching the golf course, it's out of bounds. So that hasn't changed. We'll get into the definition of out of bounds specifically when we go to rules. But it's a fact. So once we have a fact, we can rule on it. Outside the teeing area. Okay? There's no penalty for playing outside of a teeing area in match play. Okay? In stroke play, there still is a penalty. That hasn't changed. But it's a fact. Okay? Treated as. Okay? This is basically replacing the word deemed in the new rules. Okay? So we're going to talk of situations where the ball is treated as doing something, maybe even if it hasn't. Okay? The caddy attends a flag stick. If Doug's my caddy and he's standing right next to the flag stick and I look up and don't say anything, Doug is treated as attending the flag stick. Okay? Even though there's been no communication or so on and so forth. As long as I don't tell him no, the rules say that he is now treated as attending the flag stick. Okay? Moved, virtual certainty, we'll talk about. A good example of this is the ball overhanging the hole. After how many seconds is it treated as at rest? 10. That hasn't changed. So after 10 seconds, the ball is treated as being at rest, even if it is still moving. Okay, we're going to look at actions that create a potential advantage. Okay, so the player still has a lot of responsibility. Improving his lie, stance, swing, line of play. Okay, there's going to be a new concept here that is conditions affecting the stroke that we're going to talk about specifically when we get into Rule 8. An action that did help. Okay, so there are some actions out there that if you do it and it didn't help, there's no penalty. But if it did help a situation, if it did help your partner or helped you, you will be penalized. Okay? A little bit kinder than what the rules are currently. This is important. Action taken with intent. I mentioned this earlier. Okay? If we have intent of doing something, then the rules are going to say you did it. Okay? Making a stroke, putting a ball into play. So if I'm doing this, that I have the intent of putting the ball in play, and I drop it, and then I change my mind all of a sudden, I had intent of putting the ball in play, so the rules say the ball's in play. So that's what this is talking about. Deliberate deflections, different than accidental. You saw those two words earlier. Look at the difference between deliberate and accidental. If we deliberately do something, we're going to still be on the hook for a penalty. If it's an accidental, chances are you're not going to be penalized. And we'll also talk about the rules of golf terminology versus English terminology. You know, the difference between an accidental. We know what it means in English, but it might mean a little bit different in golf. That still hasn't changed also from last year. All right, virtual certainty. What caused the ball to move, or a ball that's not found in a penalty area, an abnormal course condition, or moved by an outside influence? Maybe some new terms there that you're not too familiar with, but you will be when you're done with me. When taking reasonable actions, here's where the player gets a lot of protection now. If the player is taking reasonable actions to do something, he's probably not going to be penalized if he does something wrong. Probably. There's still exceptions in the rules of golf. When it becomes known, this talks about order of play. This is a situation that we've talked about before, currently with the rules. Order of play is very important in match play, not so much in stroke play. But when it becomes known where a ball is supposed to be at rest, then we know we can deal with it. It becomes a factual situation at that point. Reasonable and unreasonable are two words that we will talk about a lot with the 2019 rules. Okay? Delay, repairing the putting green. There's been a lot of talk about being able to repair spike marks in the putting green moving forward. Okay? So can a player just continuously, just for the 25 feet putt, tap down spike marks? No. We're going to have an unreasonable delay situation. Okay? We're not going to let this player unreasonably delay play. So there are some situations that the new rules seem like, well, that seems like it's slower, but the rules also cover it again in another way. Reasonable and unreasonable, two important terms that we're going to talk about. Clearly unreasonable. Free relief is not allowed despite having interference. Same as it is now. You're standing on a cart path and your ball's up against a tree in a root, the rules aren't going to give you relief there. If it's clearly unreasonable, you can't make a stroke if that cart path wasn't there. Reasonable judgment. Right there in Rule 1, it talks about accepting player judgment and estimating and measuring. So if a player hits a ball into a penalty area and she goes back and just drops it somewhere where she thinks it's on the line, if it's close and it doesn't create a big advantage, she's going to be okay. Even if Jim, who's videotaping the round, comes back and says, nope, you should have dropped over here, as long as the player had reasonable judgment when she was making that situation, putting the ball back in play, then she's not going to be penalized. So the use of video, all those call-ins, that stuff's gone. You're not going to see that on TV anymore. The naked eye. Definition of move. This is important. The naked eye test. We're not going to go into video review to see if a ball moved anymore. We're going to look at it. If it moved, it moved. If it didn't, it didn't. If we're using our naked eye. So it's a good thing that we're taking some of this technology that we have available, but we're not using it. You know, we're not going to zoom in on that ball and see if something happened. All right. Again, what we talked about at the beginning, golf is divided into two different sets of rules. Match play, it's only you and your opponent. The term that I got from my seminar in Atlanta was bubble. So if Jack and I are playing a match, it's just our bubble, just the two of us. The rest of you don't care about what's going on between our match. So we have certain situations that we will deal with between Jack and I. We can overlook violations of the rules in match play. Okay, we can agree to something that is not within the rules as long as we're not purposely doing it trying to avoid the rules. May sound a little complicated, but like for example, we can't just on the first tee say, hey, we're going to give each other 3 feet and in putts. Still can't do that. Can't agree to do that. Right? Stroke play, every player in the field has an interest in the results of your play. So if Jack and I are playing together as fellow players, not fellow competitors anymore, but we're playing in a stroke play event, you guys all care about what we shoot. It does matter, so the rules are going to protect the field in that situation. Okay, look at the differences here between match play and stroke play. Not a lot of difference that we're used to already. Okay, we get play against an opponent in match play. It's a side. It can be 4-ball. It can be singles. But playing against the entire field is the difference in stroke play, like we just talked about. Okay, what a round is, we have an 18-hole round. It's not a stipulated round anymore. It's just called a round. 18 one-hole contests are played in match play. And when you're playing number 1, you're not worried about number 4 yet. In stroke play, hopefully you're not doing the same thing, but number 4 might be your hole where you just can't get the tee ball in play. I mean, I've got about 7 or 8 of those tee shots that I can't hit. Scoring is different. Penalty strokes, the general penalty is different. We've got loss of hole for the general penalty in match play, 2 strokes in stroke play. There are 3 types of penalties now that we talk about in the rules of golf. We've got the 1-stroke penalty, which can be match play or stroke play, the general penalty, and a disqualification penalty. So there's a tier listed now of penalties. In match play, the players have the right to know the match score, but they might not. Taylor? They will have changed a little bit, and that's a document that I will work on, because that's something that, yeah, absolutely. So we did used to have a listing of the 1- and 2-stroke penalties. That's something I will be working on that will come into our officials manual. Yes. Again, we can overlook an opponent's breach, and concessions are permitted in match play, but they're not permitted in stroke play. You know, BJ and I are playing stroke play. BJ can't say, hey, you know, pick that up, it's good. Well, I guess he can. Just wouldn't work out too well for me. Okay. We're going to resolve dots or request a ruling. We're not going to make a claim anymore. We're going to request a ruling as far as the terminology is going forward there. But that's in match play. We might have a situation where we're not sure what the ruling is, and we're going to request a ruling, but we still have to play on. Okay, we can't just stop play. And what else can we not do in match play? Play a second ball. You cannot do that. That's still not changed. You cannot play a second ball in match play. Okay. Resolve the doubts before returning the scorecard in stroke play. Okay, there is a new standard of when we are done trying to get rulings. It used to be before walking off the 18th green or your last green. Now it's before you return your scorecard. So like if you have a situation on the 18th green and you walk off the green, currently in the rules, well, now you're done. You can't just go back and look at something. Well, it's before you return your scorecard in stroke play, and in match play, it's before the result is announced. So a little bit more friendly there as well. Any questions on the difference between match and stroke play? It's essentially the same, really, of what we talked about in 2018. Okay, so let's look at some patterns that are in the new rules here. Again, I've talked about this already. Accidental versus deliberate basically is no penalty versus penalty. This is really a good thing just to think about. If it's accidental, there's probably going to be no penalty. If it's deliberate, there will be a penalty. No. That is not allowed to do within the rules of golf. So that's something I would look into. That actually waives a rule of golf. And that a local rule is not allowed to waive a rule of golf. So once again, if you guys didn't hear that, can we put a local rule in place that allows the second ball to be played in match play? And that answer is no. We cannot do that. That waives a rule of golf. Okay, so ball at rest at move, we're going to always replace, and we'll talk about 2 exceptions. Again, the golf rules haven't changed where the word always is there, but then they have exceptions, so it's really not always. But there are 2 exceptions that we're going to talk about. But for example, ball at rest at move that we're always going to replace it. Currently, if we play golf, not today because I don't think we can, but if you mark your ball on the putting green, lift it, clean it, and place it, and then move back, and the wind blows the ball, what do we do today? Play it where it comes to rest, right? Moving forward in 2019, once you lift, clean, and place that ball on the putting green, that's its spot. No matter what causes it to move, we're going to replace it. Okay? Pretty simple. So once that ball is on the putting green, it owns that land once you lift it, clean it, and place it. So, required corrections of stroke play, again, that I just mentioned, must be done before starting the next hole in that situation or returning the scorecard in the example of the 18th hole. So it's not before leaving the putting green, it's before returning the scorecard. When a player gets a penalty, it's immediate versus the opportunity to correct or undo. We've got the eraser rule that hopefully everybody's familiar with, where if a player drops a ball like this moving forward, we're going to have him redrop it. The ball is in play when you drop it incorrectly or in the wrong way, as the new rules will say, but he's allowed to pick that up and drop it correctly. So you could put yourself in a situation that you might get a penalty, but you have a chance to correct it. Lifting a ball, when is marking required and when is not? This is not changed. When is marking a ball required in the rules of golf? When it is to be replaced. For example, putting green. Okay? We're going to replace that ball on that spot, so it must be marked. When we're lifting a ball for relief from a cart path, do we mark it? Not necessary. Good idea. There's a should there. But we're not going to replace that ball. We're going to drop it somewhere else, so it doesn't need to be marked. Dropping a ball, we're going to have this new term of a reference point that we're going to create, which is very similar to nearest point of relief currently, but it is a little bit different. We'll go over the different rules and the different situations where the reference point becomes a different situation. For example, embedded ball, the reference point currently is what? Where do we drop that ball for an embedded ball? Right in that pitch mark, don't we? We try to do that. The reference point moving forward is right behind that pitch mark. Plus, you get a relief area of a club length, so it's not dropping it onto a spot. And that's something that you will see moving forward. We never, never, never drop a ball on a spot. We always place a ball on a spot or drop into a relief area. Okay? So that's a new change. There's situations where we were supposed to drop a ball on a spot, but no longer. We actually place the ball if it's a specific spot, or we drop a ball if it's going to be in a relief area. Okay, and drop and stay there. What that means is we play the ball from that relief area now. So that ball, if there's a situation that the ball can almost roll 4 club lengths, and it's still in play. Okay, lateral relief for a red penalty area, you get 2 club lengths from there. For example, let's say it's 2 club lengths in both directions. It's not straight down this line. There happens to be a way that we can go 2 club lengths. You could drop that ball in the relief area on one edge, and it can roll those 4 club lengths over here, and it's still in play, as long as it stays in the relief area. Sounds a little complicated, but believe me, you'll get this when we get into the relief area drops. But the thing is, we're not redropping it because it rolled more than 2 club lengths like we did before. It's just drop it in the relief area, get it in the relief area, play on. Replacing a ball, like I mentioned, we're always placing it on a specific spot or the estimated spot. Okay? So if a ball's moved and we don't know where the spot was, what do we do in 2018? We drop it. But if it's moved in 2019, even if we don't know the spot, we're placing it on that spot. Once a ball is moved and we know the spot or an estimated spot, we're going to place it there. Little change there. Okay, we must report to the committee when playing 2 balls in a hole in stroke play. There's a couple of situations that we can play 2 balls. We're still reporting to the committee. The 3-3, I think, is now 20-3, or 20.3, excuse me. But that doesn't matter. We'll figure that out as we move on forward about the actual numbers, but it's not important as long as we know where to find the rule. But playing a second ball, we have to report to the committee, and if we think we may have had a serious breach from playing from a wrong place, and we play a second ball, we have to report to the committee. That doesn't change. Okay, getting into the spirit of the game and the etiquette. The new rules directly address the high standards expected from our players. It's now there in the rules. We expect you to conduct yourselves within the spirit of the game. Okay? We can impose penalties now for a breach of etiquette that is not just disqualification. We can give them a 1-stroke penalty for doing something wrong. Okay? You'll see this as you read these rules as you're moving forward. All players are expected to play in the spirit of the game, acting with integrity, showing consideration to others, and taking care of the course. Rule 1.2a talks specifically about that. Okay? So not only is it in the rules now, it's expected, and the players have this information there that says this is how you're expected to play. So there can be penalties applied. Okay? For example, you'll be able to mark lift in a ball to identify it, check for damage, or to see if it's embedded without announcing. Currently, there's a procedure we have to go through. We have to tell Taylor, who's my partner, hey, you need to come over here. You need to see me do this. No longer in 2019. The rules say that, the rules are written that the player is honest and is not going to cheat, and so the rules are expecting that. The rules are allowing some things to happen without making these double checks and these things where people have to see it happen. So you can mark and lift, check your ball, and replace it without having somebody come over and watch you do it. Okay? Player judgment. This player's taking relief from a penalty area. As long as she makes some pretty good judgment of where that ball crossed, she's going to be fine. Even if it turns out to be wrong. Okay? As long as it's not a serious breach. Okay? The standards of conduct. The committee can set these standards of conduct that we talked about, and we can adopt its own code of conduct and set the penalties. We can make a 1-stroke penalty, a 2-stroke penalty, a disqualification penalty. We can do this. Okay? Okay, again, here we're going to have some videos. Unfortunately, I don't have any sound, but I've seen them about 400 times, so I can at least give you an idea about what's going on. But the prompt pace of play, it's coming out of my computer here, so it's as loud as I got it. So what they want with prompt pace of play is ready golf. The term ready golf is now in the rules of golf. Okay, it is listed there. Stroke play, we want you guys to play ready golf. Be ready to go. You can play out of turn. Okay, like there's an example coming up here that I'll show you in a little bit of a player that's hitting a chip shot out of the trees and she's not sure what to do, so she lets the other person go. That seems like something we would have done in the past, but the rules encourage it now. Okay, that might not seem like a big deal, but it really is. The rules are encouraging the players to play quickly. Match play, if you allow it, it's fine. You can allow your opponent to play out of turn. Here's that example I was talking about. This player has a challenging shot, or an average shot for me. This is pretty normal. Letting her opponent go first, that's fine. The ready golf is encouraged. Okay? However, if you allow your opponent to go first, what cannot happen? You cannot recall the stroke for playing out of turn, for playing out of order. Hopefully we'll have this audio fixed for the next session. I apologize for that. Okay, we've heard about this one, right? No longer 5 minutes to look for your golf ball. We got 3 minutes. Okay? They did a lot of studies and said most golf balls that are found within 3 minutes. This isn't really going to be one of those situations. I know we've all found a ball at 4 minutes and 27 seconds. I know it's happened. But this will help pace of play a little bit here. Okay? And this will also encourage players to play provisionals, hopefully, as well. Okay. Here's a big change. Brew, real quick.
If you hit provisional, you still have your options of dropping the ball in the fairway?
No.
So you would discourage provisional.
In that situation, if a player plays a provisional, that local rule, which will only be in effect in certain situations, now we will encourage clubs to do this for normal play, but that's also a situation of strategy as well. You know, whether or not, if you're on an intimidating hole and you hit a ball straight out of bounds, do you want to try to hit your provisional in play, or do you just want to go ahead and take the two-stroke penalty, which is like getting your provisional in play and dropping it in the fairway? But the specific local rule says if a provisional is played, then you may not drop a ball. Your provisional will be in play once your original ball becomes lost. So, this is a change that I'm pretty excited about here, is caddies and partners may not assist a player with alignment. One thing that I do want to point out here, this is a good point for me to say this, is rules 1 through 20 in the new rules book of the 24 don't mention the word partner. Okay, it just says the player. But the rules will still apply to 4-ball, foursomes, and so on and so forth, and the partner is included in that. Okay, and rules 21 through 24 will specifically talk about the differences when playing with a partner. But when you're looking up a rule where it says something about the player, it is also referring to the partner. Now, if there's a different situation to deal with, whether or not a penalty helped a partner, rules 21 through 24 will help that, and will clear that up. We'll get more specific into that as well. But now a caddy or a partner may not assist with alignment. So what this means is this partner right here is fine. Once that player starts to take her stance, you cannot be on that extension line of play. Once that player gets to taking the stance, you cannot be in that line of play. It's very important. If you're standing on that line, when they take their stance or begin to take their stance, we've got the general penalty. Okay? This is, again, another thing to help out with pace of play. General penalty. It'll be a loss of hole in match play, 2 strokes, and stroke play. Yes? It's the same thing on the putting green. However, there is a difference. So how does it apply in the putting green is there's a chance to get away from the penalty. In the general area or the teeing ground or in a penalty area or a bunker, if you're behind the player, you cannot get out of the penalty. So once you take your stance and I'm behind you, you're penalized. Even if I move away or if you back out of your stance or you go get a hot dog, you cannot get out of the penalty. The putting green, you can. The difference is in the putting green is if once you're in your stance and somebody's on my line of play, and if you back off your stance and get back in with them gone, you're okay. Okay. The difference there is they want you still helping with reading a putt. You know, so if they're going to help you in that situation, it's okay. So there is a big difference there. Okay. The caddy may always mark, lift, and clean the ball on the putting green. Currently, a caddy has to have authorization each and every time to lift and mark and clean your ball on the putting green. Moving forward in 2019, the caddy's allowed to do this. You can go up there, do it, no penalty. Makes sense, right? That's the caddy's job, is to clean your ball. It's one of his assignments. So the rules are going to say let's allow it.
They're the one that needs to put it back.
Not necessarily, no. The player may put it back as well, or the partner, and we'll get into that as well. But yeah, just because the caddy lifted it, he does not have to. He may, but he does not have to. And there's one of those code words, may. All right, putting allowed with the flag stick in the hole. This is another big change that we've all heard about. And there's the optional local rule for stroke and distance. Okay, so we can putt with the flag stick in the hole currently. We just can't hit the flag stick. Okay, there's no penalty for putting with the flag stick in right now. Okay, but now there's a penalty if you hit the flag stick or you hit the attendant. 2019, there's no longer a penalty if you hit the flag stick or the attendant. And we're going to play the ball as it lies. So that means if you hold it, great. If it hits the flag stick and goes out, then you're going to play it as it lies, no penalty. And have everybody done their testing on the coefficient of restitution to flag sticks? Hopefully you guys understand that joke. All right. Any questions so far before I ask you a question? Doing good?
We're dropping in a relief area. If the ball will not stay in the relief area, do we still place it after 2 drops?
So if we drop a ball in a relief area and it doesn't stay in that relief area, if we drop it twice, do we replace it? Yes. Do we place it? We do. Not replace it, we place it. So if we drop it and it rolls out of the relief area, we drop it again and it rolls out of the relief area, and now we place it where it hit the golf course. Very similar to today. Yep. Correct. Correct. There's 4 situations you cannot clean a golf ball moving forward, and we'll go over those specifically once we get to them. All right, so Doug hits a tee shot toward an area that has tall grass and OB stakes. He goes forward and searches his ball for 1 minute. He returns to the tee, announces, and plays a provisional. Within the 3-minute time limit, a ball is found that is believed to be his. He gets back to the area and identifies his ball, but it's now been 3.5 minutes expired since the search began. So what's the ruling here? So here's our answers. There's no penalty. The original ball's in play. Whoops, a little too quick for me. So you don't have time to think about it. All right, well, let's break this situation down. Okay, so you guys probably know the answer unless you weren't paying attention, which I get a lot of, by the way. So, all right, so can he go back and play a provisional in 2019? Yes. Can he today? No. Once you go forward and search today, you can't go back and play a provisional. That has changed. Okay, and how has this changed? It doesn't say you can't. Here's one of those examples where it doesn't say you can't go back and do it. Okay, so now that we know the answer, and the 3.5 minute thing is also something we'll talk about. But under the new rules, a player may return and play a provisional. If you look at 18.3a, it just says how you play a provisional. It doesn't say you can't go back once search has begun. The old rules said that. New rules don't. Okay? And, what's that?
Why, if it's in the spirit of pace of play improving that, why did they allow it to go back?
Because it's still underneath that 3 minutes, but once his 3 minutes expires, he's got to play a provisional. So that if he plays a provisional, that's going to help us out with pace of play. And just because it's a smaller window, they're allowing the person a 3-minute time limit. They're allowing the person to play provisional if they forgot to or didn't think they needed to. So, but again, it's a good example. If it says you can't, then it's okay. And a player has a reasonable amount of time to identify the ball if it's found within the time limit. So this is still currently the rule. If you had a 5-minute search, and Jackie's helping me look for my ball, and 4.5 minutes it expired, and she finds a ball, and I'm on the other side of the fairway thinking it hit a tree over there, and it takes me 45 seconds to get over there, there's still no penalty for a loss, or the ball's not lost after 5 minutes. It's the same situation moving forward in 2019.
Is that 3-minute time limit suspended while it goes back to the provisional?
No. No, the time limit still keeps on going in that situation. Because right. Right. Yeah, so that time limit keeps on going.
Essentially, the ball has to be found within 3 minutes, not necessarily identified.
Correct. Correct. The ball must be identified within 3 minutes. A ball must be found so that we can go identify it. Okay, so if we find a ball at 3 minutes, 5 seconds, it doesn't matter. But yeah, the 3-minute time limit is to whether or not we find a ball and we have a chance to identify it. So if we find it at 2:59 and it takes me 45 seconds to go look at it, we're okay.
Is there any change to when 3 minutes starts?
Nope. No, the 3 minute starts once your side starts to look for the ball. That is the same. That was your question? Okay. Good questions. All right.
Todd,
Yep.
isn't there a thing though saying, but
If you're doing something against the spirit of the rules, for example, not searching for a ball, you're probably going to have yourself a penalty in a different rule. But your time limit has to start within a reasonable amount of time. So, I mean, I can't just all of a sudden just start kind of wandering off to the left, without some sort of repercussion. And this would be back into the committee's conduct as well. But, I mean, we have to allow the player a reasonable amount of time to get to his ball. We're not going to make him sprint to get there. But if he is delaying, then we have an unreasonable delay.
I read something where but that doesn't allow him to delay his getting to the area.
Right.
So that other people will look for the ball.
Yeah, and the rule says a player has a reasonable amount of time to get there, and that's the important part. All right, so let's talk about these relaxed requirements and reduced penalties. That's what makes the golfer a little bit happier. So we'll talk about situations on the putting green, in the bunkers, and all these accidental acts and occurrences. If you're searching for your ball and you accidentally move it, you're not going to be penalized in 2019. 2018, if you're looking for your ball and you kick it, you're penalized. Okay. The important part there is this hasn't changed, is you have to be looking for it. Okay, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but for example, if you hit a shot that goes straight into some trees and you think it went through the trees 200 yards down there and you're just walking, but it actually hit the trees and dropped in front of the tee and you kicked it and you're not looking for your ball, you are penalized. So there's a specific situation in the interpretations that I'll talk about here shortly that say you have to be looking for your golf ball for it to be an accidental movement. All right, so here's an example. We're talking about the repair of the damage on putting greens. So in 2019, a player may repair spike marks, may repair animal hoof prints, and other damage, such as the flag stick and so on and so forth, without penalty on your line of play. There is no more line of putt in the rules of golf. Everything is a line of play. Okay? This, again, is also reasonable delay, or unreasonable delay is going to cause a penalty. You must take reasonable actions to do so, to repair these spike marks. Reasonable actions would include not using a specific garden tool. That's not reasonable. You have to use a tool that is designed for this. You have to do it quickly. You can't do the entire length of your 50-foot putt, so on and so forth. So,
What about aerification holes?
no. Aerification holes are not allowed to be repaired. They are a standard practice. So are verticutting. Okay? So the standard practices such as those are not allowed to be repaired.
Isn't there a rule that allows you to, through the green, go through the green to get relief from damage caused by the ground crew?
Like a rut made by a tractor or something like that. Yeah, that's ground under repair. So if there's damage on the golf course that is a big hole or something like that, you are entitled to relief.
Isn't that inconsistent then to say that you don't get relief on a green from damage from ground?
Well, I would say no, it's not inconsistent because it's a practice that the entire green is going to be specifically done this way. And so you would have hundreds and hundreds of possible aerification holes on your mark, on your line, excuse me. Well, sure, but you're allowed to repair damage now as long as it's not what's the word I'm looking for here, maintenance procedure that is normal. So like if somebody scuffs their feet and stuff like that. Right, but I know what you're saying, but yeah, it's not all damage. The point of the rule is not all damage is allowed to be repaired now, but most of it is. Okay, so if we have issues, basically, yes, do it until you say you can't. But something also like irrigation issues, are not allowed to be repaired unless the committee has determined it is ground under repair. So.
And that's just putting green, not the swing.
Correct. This is just the putting green. Yeah, this does not refer to the rest of the golf course. Now, the rest of the golf course would be ground under repair issues. An abnormal course condition is what it would fall under, and that would have to be marked, or you could play a second ball in that situation if you weren't sure.
What if your ball's on the fringe, and the next guy behind you hits the fringe and makes the ball mark right in front of you?
Okay, if your ball is at rest and a pitch mark comes in and disturbs your line, you're entitled to repair that. Yeah, if your ball is at rest. If your ball's at rest, you can, before you play. You cannot repair it. Yeah, that's the same as it is currently. Same as it is currently. All right, touching the line of play on the putting green. This is allowed now. So you'll see this video. We've got a caddy lining up here. In 2018, penalty. 2019, not a penalty. This is allowed. We're allowed to touch the putting green to show a line of play. Okay? That is a pretty significant change. Okay? Accidental movement of the ball. Okay? This is the local rule that's in place. Hopefully we're all familiar with this right now. But the rule is now specifically a rule of golf. Okay? I have individual situations here. I'm not trying to confuse you with anything with this four-way video. But there are different situations that can constitute an accidental movement. Addressing the ball and accidentally moving it. No penalty, replace it. If you ever try to mark your ball like that, I don't want to play golf with you. No penalty there. Accidental movement. Was fixing a pitch mark, accidentally kicked your ball on the putting green. Okay. In this situation, or all these situations, you can either replace the ball or the ball marker. Doesn't matter. You can just do it either way you want. Okay? But what accidental means is exactly what we're talking about. Okay? So if you purposely pick up a ball without marking it, and you say, oops, I accidentally forgot to mark it, it doesn't work. That's still a penalty. So there's a difference between a purposeful act and an accidental act. Okay?
You mentioned earlier that in those cases with accidental movement, there would probably not be a penalty.
Right.
So in which cases would there be a penalty?
The term I use probably refers to the difference in accidental between golf and English. So like when a human being accidentally does something, it might be a purposeful act, like I just said. But any accidental motion of the movement of the ball is not going to be a penalty. One exception that I can come up with is in the example where we haven't started searching for our ball, and if we're walking down the middle of the fairway and we drop our club and accidentally move the ball, because we weren't searching for it, it's going to be a penalty. Okay?
Still a penalty in the fairway, the accidental, or often accidentally move the ball.
Yes. Is it a penalty if you accidentally move your ball in the fairway, which is the general area? Yeah, it's going to be a penalty unless you are doing something allowed within the rules, such as marking your ball, like to lift it to see if it's embedded or whatever the situation might be. But an accidental motion, again, that's the thing that I was kind of trying to talk about before, is what is accidental? The rules of golf are going to talk about that, and where is the ball is important. It has to be on the putting green. Okay? After marking, lifting, and the ball is always replaced if it moves on the putting green. So here's that example that we talked about where this player has marked her ball, she's cleaned it, and she's replaced it. And then I think they got somebody with a blower back there. Because now her ball moves. Okay, so she's required to replace it. Okay? Today, if she's playing, she doesn't replace that. 2019, we're going to replace it. Once you get that ball on the putting green marked, it owns that property. It has to be there no matter what causes it to move. Yes. Yeah. It is the player's judgment where that spot is. If the player uses reasonable judgment to place that ball, she's going to be fine. But if she picks it up and says, oh, it was right next to the hole, not very reasonable. So, okay for a putt to strike an unintended flag stick in the hole. If you notice, this player is playing from the fringe. Okay? So if this ball were to strike the flag stick, there is currently no penalty, and there is no penalty moving forward. Okay? This is a good example of why you would leave the flag stick in, because you knocked it up onto the green. All right, I'm just going to go tap it in. Okay, and this is allowed. And so what the audio said is you can leave the flag stick in there to save time, or even if you think it helps you. So if you think you're getting an advantage from leaving the flag stick in, the rules don't care. Go ahead, do it.
What if it's an intended flag stick?
Intended flag stick is the same situation. It can strike the flag stick, it can strike the attendant, no penalty, provided it wasn't done with some purpose. So for example, the ball's flying by, Todd hits a putt that's going to go 10 feet by, and my caddy stops it with the flag stick. There's a penalty there.
Someone's standing near the flag stick,
Uh-huh.
you don't want to intend it, you got to specifically tell them, or they...
If someone is standing near the flag stick, they are treated as attending the flag stick unless I object as a player. Yes. Same as 2018. Yep. You got to say something. But the good part is it doesn't matter if he strikes the person that is treated as attending the flag stick. There's no penalty anymore. Yeah, well, that's between you and him. All right, so let's talk about bunkers. And we'll get into this situation now that we'll talk about, but there are now 5 parts to a golf course. Okay, there were currently 4, but they've taken hazards and divided them up into penalty areas and bunkers because there are some slightly different rules now. So there are 5 areas to the golf course. There's the teeing area, the general area, the putting green, penalty areas, bunkers. All right, so it's okay to move loose impediments when your ball is in a bunker now. No penalty at all. Who likes this rule? All right, and there's been some questions, and Taylor Albritton and I have had some good discussions about this. Well, won't this slow up? People are picking up loose impediments all over the place. Like you hit your ball into a penalty area, and this person just, picks up 27 leaves or something like that. Reasonable actions and delays is the situation here as well. So.
Just to make sure, if your ball is laying near the loose impediment, you pick it up and the ball moves, then you're penalized.
So if we move a loose impediment and the ball moves, we are still penalized. We are still penalized, with the exception of the ball being on the putting green. Okay. We're going to replace the ball. We're going to replace the ball. Okay? Okay, we can touch the sand now in the bunker, except near the ball. Okay, so here's some examples here of when we cannot touch the sand. No. 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 Still can't take practice swings unless you take a practice swing in a different bunker. That's a new change as well. But we'll get into that when we talk about bunkers under Rule 12, I believe, is bunkers now. Not that it matters. But. All right, here's another change. Accidental accident occurrences where you have no penalty. Deflection of your ball in motion. Whether it hits you or your equipment, there is no longer a penalty, provided it's accidental. Okay? So if you hit a ball that hits a tree and it's going to go out of bounds and you run and dive to keep it from going out of bounds, that's not accidental. Okay? I still have to tell this story about Doug and I every time we talk about a deflected ball. I love this story. We were playing at Hillcrest when we were both working there when we were younger and not as fat. We were playing number 11 at Hillcrest, the par 3, and Doug hits his tee shot into the greenside bunker, and as we're driving up to the hole, he says something crazy like, I've never holed a bunker shot. And I'm like, what? He says, I've never holed a bunker shot. And it's like, he says, in practice I have, but never in a round. It's like, you're crazy. You've been playing golf. You're a good player. So we get up there, and what does he do? Blades it into the bunker, comes back and hits him in the chest and drops down there. And at that time, it's a 2-stroke penalty. Then he holds the next shot. So today, that's a birdie. When we played it, it was a bogey. Last year, it was a par. So, all right, movement of the ball on the putting green. We went all through this situation with all these different situations where the ball is accidentally moved. There's going to be no penalty. Okay? Movement of a ball during search. And here's an example of a player that's looking for the ball and some reasonable actions of searching for the ball where this player will not get penalized. Some thick grass, he's kind of moving some stuff around. Oh, kicked his ball. He's going to estimate where that ball was, and he's also going to estimate the lie. He's going to get it down in there. Okay? Using his best judgment. Putting it back in that situation. So yes. And that's a good question that Keith came up. He's going to place this instead of dropping it because it was on a specific spot. Okay? And we're going to estimate that spot, and the rule says if we're going to estimate a spot, we're going to place it. We never drop the ball. We never drop the ball onto a spot. Yep. I can go back. I'm going to get to it? Okay. All right, the double hits. All right, if you're really good at double hitting the ball, no penalty anymore. Okay? So double hit, triple hit, quad hit, so on and so forth, there's no penalty. So if you accidentally hit your ball and you make a stroke and it pops up and you hit it again, currently it's a 1-stroke penalty. We play it as it lies. 2019, it's just 1 stroke, no penalty. Even if you go click, 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 as long as it's accidental, you can't do this and then just juggle it to the hole. That's not going to be an accident. But if you can do that, I'd like to play around the golf with you. That'd be fun. All right. We had some good questions there. I've got one here for you. Bailey is looking for her ball in play before identifying it in the general area. when she drops her club and it hits and moves her ball 2 feet closer to the hole. What is the ruling? No penalty, play the ball as it lies. No penalty, we replace it. There's a one-stroke penalty and we play it as it lies. There's a one-stroke penalty and we replace it. Have we been paying attention? There's no penalty. Bailey is looking for her ball. So she's actively searching for a ball. There's not going to be a penalty. Dropping your club is a reasonable act while you're looking around. It's not crazy to think that a player could do that. Okay? You look at Rule 7.4, that'll talk about it. So under the new rules, a player will not be penalized when trying to find or identify their ball. Again, the actions of dropping a club are reasonable for someone looking for the ball in the situation.
But if you're looking for a ball, you find the ball, you think, oh, it's not my ball, you pick it up, and you go, crap.
Okay. Okay, so if you're looking for a ball and you think it's not yours, and you pick it up and it turns out it is yours, you've accidentally moved your ball in play while you're searching for it, I think. But let me look into that one. That's a good question.
You were trying to identify it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a reasonable action. This isn't, again, the rules of golf are really common sense now. So I would think that this is a reasonable action. I think in 2018, we're going to penalize you. But in 2019, I don't think we're going to. But we'll look that one up, Doug, and we'll be sure of that one. But I'm pretty sure that's the reasonable action.
We didn't have that situation discussed at the Thursday night, our first Thursday night one.
I don't remember. That was so long ago. I can't even remember, yesterday.
I remember, I don't know if it was on this Facebook golf rules site, but there was a discussion of that, and it was, no, there's not a penalty.
Yeah.
Because you're allowed to replace it because you accidentally.
Yeah, I think because...
You didn't pick your ball up, you picked a ball up.
Right. And I agree with that, Pat, that I think that if we have a situation where we accidentally move our ball in play with reasonable intent of, the situation we're talking about. But if you're just randomly picking up balls, that might be different, but I think we're good there. I don't think there's going to be a penalty. All right. Here we go. We talked about earlier with virtual certainty. It's now used to determine whether or not a ball has been moved by the player. Dustin Johnson rule is what we're talking about here. So virtual certainty is required to conclude that you caused your ball to move. So this player is making some actions near his ball. Nothing has happened. The ball has stayed in place. Takes a practice swing. Nothing has happened. Okay? So this ball is pretty much at rest. And all of a sudden it moves. Okay? Is there anyone here that is 95% certain that player caused the ball to move? Please, nobody raise your hand. Yeah, so this is what the new standard is for a ball moving. We have to be certain that that player caused the ball to move for the player to be on a hook for a penalty. Okay? The Dustin Johnson situation, no penalty moving forward. Again, it was on the putting green, which wouldn't have been a penalty anyway. But had this happened in the fairway to Dustin Johnson, he wouldn't have been penalized either because we were pretty certain he didn't cause it to move. All right, penalty areas. Now this video's got a lot of talking going on in it, so I'll kind of try to tell you about what's going on here. So penalty areas are still red and yellow, same situation, but penalty areas are extended from water hazards to allow like heavy grass or some woods and so on and so forth. I assume everybody can hear that, right? That's not loud enough, right? Okay. So one thing that we cannot do with a penalty area is make out of bounds a penalty area. Okay? So out of bounds is out of bounds. The golf course can have penalty areas within it, but we can't have a penalty area outside of the golf course. So if you're thinking of marking your golf course red around the perimeter, it's not allowed in the rules of golf. It is still out of bounds. It is still stroking distance in that situation. And so as you can see, this player is taking relief from a penalty area into a relief area. And she's going to play that ball from the relief area as well. And we'll get real specific about the dropping procedures when we get into that. But basically, the red and yellow do not change, with one small exception, is the red penalty area will not have the opposite side equidistant option, like we currently do in the rules of golf. That's going away. It can be reinstituted by a local rule if a club wishes to do that, but it's not an option within the rules of golf anymore. For example, a good one that I always think about is 18 at Hallbrook, where the creek off the tee shot goes kind of straight along your line and goes off to the right and back to the left. If you currently hit it up into the right crap and it rolls into the water hazard, which is currently correct, you're allowed to drop in the fairway because 2 club lengths on the equidistant opposite margin works. You're not allowed to do that in the new rules of golf. They took it out because it's a kind of a confusing rule It's caused some situations that have caused penalties. For example, players were going on the other side of the margin, finding that spot, and then going back as far as they wanted, which never was an option in the rules of golf. You had to just use the 2 club lengths on either side. It's very rarely used. It doesn't come into play very much, so it's no longer a rule of golf. It is a local rule of golf that can be instituted if a club wishes or if a competition wishes. Okay, any penalty area can be marked red. Even things that we consider just yellow today, we can mark it red if we want. A little bit more leniency in what the clubs are allowed to do with penalty areas. In the past, a yellow water hazard was designed for it to be defeated. The ball had to go over it and stay over it. You know, if it rolled back into it, we had to line it up where it crossed with the flagstick and drop right on that line. We can mark that as red now. It won't make a difference really in much situations, but there might be a situation where giving a player 2 club lengths off to the side might be beneficial. So any penalty area can be marked as red. You can see, for example, here, there's not any water behind that. It's just tall weeds. We can mark that as a penalty area and play it as a penalty area. Okay, what can we do when our ball is in a penalty area? Well, we can do a lot now. Okay, we can move these loose impediments. Player comes in here and moves these loose impediments. No problem, as long as that ball doesn't move. If we move the ball, we're penalized. That's still going to be a 1-stroke penalty. Okay, we can take practice swings. Boom. You can touch the ground. You can touch the water. There's no problem there. Okay? Currently, you can take a practice swing as long as you don't improve your lie or hit the ground. But now we're allowing practice swings to hit the ground. But it can't improve your lie either, or it can't move your ball. That doesn't change. Absolutely, you can ground your club when you're addressing the ball. You can ground your club in a penalty area right behind the ball. Obviously, we don't want the ball to move. If it moves, we've got to replace it. We'll replace it. Yeah, it's still a penalty. If you cause the ball to move. If we're 95% certain that you caused the ball to move in a penalty area, you're going to...
Taking a practice swing close to the ball, let's say 95% sure.
Probably, if it's instantaneous. So if we have a ball that's in a penalty area and we take a practice swing near it and the ball immediately moves, we're probably going to be 95% sure that that swing caused the ball to move in that situation. So we're going to replace it.
Even if it's not immediate. Let's say,
And that's a case-by-case situation. Yep. Yeah. Basically, we need to have a fact. So what he was saying there is, even if it's not immediate, could it be a penalty? And the answer is yes, it could be. But we need a factual situation to be discovered. Did he cause it to move is all we care about. Okay? The player will be asked. Anybody that has information will be asked what caused that to move. And if we're not 95% sure, no penalty. If it moves, no. If it moves on its own, but if we penalize the player, we are replacing it. So if a ball moves on its own, we're not going to replace it. And if the player makes it move, we are going to replace it. Okay, here's the relief options. The 3 for the red are the same as they are today. Where it crossed, we're going to line up and go back as far as we want. However, the relief area is a little different that we'll talk about, where we can actually drop it. The 2 club lengths is the same. Where it crossed, a reference point is created from where it crossed into that penalty area. You get 2 club lengths there, or you can go back to where you last played from. Same as today, we just took away that equidistant one. The yellow ones, they're the 2 options. We just take away the club lengths one, it's the same thing.
Number 5 at Milburn is a yellow.
Uh-huh.
Go over that yellow,
Mhm.
treat it on the other side of the yellow,
Mhm.
and come back into the hazard over a red, which is the red for 15.
Right.
So you're saying now you can make that whole lake a red
Yes.
so that you don't have the argument because current, if it's a yellow, but you come in over the red,
Right.
it's allowed.
So what the question is there is, there's a hazard that's marked both yellow and red currently. It's not a penalty area yet, so I said that right. So if a ball crosses in a certain situation, we're going to take the last line it crossed for it to be whatever hazard it's in. So if it goes over red, tree, yellow, it's in yellow. Okay? Same thing with penalty areas. Okay? It's whatever the line it last crossed, but we can mark that.
You can take those yellows out.
Take the yellows out if you want and make it all red. You can do that. So you can mark the penalty area all red if you wish. All right, back on the line relief. This is a new dropping procedure for 2019. If everybody is currently on their rules of how to drop in 2018 when you're dropping on a line, you drop right on that line. So for example, if we hit a ball into a water hazard and we line it up with the flag stick and this line comes right through here, when we drop the ball, currently it has to drop on that line. So if I stood on the line and dropped over here and play it, that's a penalty. You got to redrop it. That's right, because you have to drop it on the line. But in the 2019 rules, the back on the line relief is a little different. We're going to create a reference point, and then we're going to have that relief area that we play from. Okay, so let's watch this video. And there's this new required procedure that you guys are all really going to enjoy. When estimating a line, you must stand on the line and put your arms and club up like this. You have to do this. All right, you're all laughing. Okay, you don't have to do that, but you get to see this a lot in these videos. She's just estimating her line, which is fine. But she's lining it up from where it crossed into the penalty area with the flag stick. She's going to select her reference point on that line. Okay, so this player is going to select where their reference point is, then they get the club length to drop, and that's your relief area. Okay? If the player does not select a reference point and just drops her ball, the reference point becomes the spot on the line equal to where her ball hit the ground. Does that make sense? So if a player does not select her reference point and she just drops the ball and it hits the general area, let's just say 100 yards from the hole, we're going to find that spot that's on that line 100 yards from the hole, and that becomes a reference point. Okay? And so that's how we determine if she's in the relief area. Her reference point is basically defined when it strikes the ground. Okay? So a player can select a reference point by marking a T or just by saying there's my reference point or whatever. But for the most part, a player probably doesn't go through that procedure of marking it, and she's going to be fine. She's just going to drop it into that relief area. But for the rules of golf, we still have to have that reference point defined in case it doesn't fall into the relief area. And that's how it gets defined if a player doesn't pick one. Okay? Lateral relief, very similar to what we're doing today. Very similar to what we're doing today. We're going to estimate the point using our best judgment. Okay? There's our reference point that this player has determined. He's taking 2 club links no near the hole. He's going to create his little slice of pie here. And that's the relief area that he must play from. Okay? When measuring club lengths, what is a club length? The longest club in your bag except a putter. Okay? So most people it's going to be a driver. But like if you ever played a round of golf with me in college, I played a lot of rounds without my driver because it was really crooked. So it might be my 3-wood in that situation. But it's never the player's putter. So it's the longest club in your bag. No matter if you use that club or not to measure. So if you're using a wedge to measure out 2 club lengths and you have a driver in your bag, your driver is still the definition of a club length for you. So.
Todd, I thought you said something earlier about a 4 club length drop.
Okay, 4 club length drop. And a better example of what a 4 club length drop that I was talking about would be an unplayable ball. So if we have a ball that's unplayable, what's one of the options is 2 club lengths. And that's the same in 2019 as it is in 2018. And so you're going to have a reference point, which is what? The original ball. The original ball is your reference point. You get 2 club lengths from that. And you can go either direction, right? No near the hole. So we're creating a really big semicircle, right? So if you drop your ball on the very right side of this relief area and the ball trickles 3.9 club lengths but stays in the relief area, it's in play. Yes. So that's what I meant by the ball could roll almost 4 club lengths now and still be in play. Hopefully, does everybody get that? I wasn't trying to confuse anybody with that, but my point is dropping a ball into a relief area is the requirement and playing it from that relief area. So no matter how we get it in there. For example, if I drop a ball, it hits the ground, hits my foot, stays in the relief area, it's in play. No penalty if you play it. 2018, you get penalized for the ball hitting you and not redropping it. But as long as the ball dropped, hits the relief area first, and comes to rest in the relief area, it's going to be in play. So if it hits your club, if it hits anything after it strikes the relief area, it's in play.
Back on line relief,
Mm-hmm.
where you talked about the player who doesn't mark it with the T,
Yep.
point of reference.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if he drops like he or she drops like that, but it bounces forward?
Okay. Is it in the relief area? That's all we care about. If it's not in the relief area, we have to redrop it. So if a, right. So here's the example. The question is, what if a player doesn't define their reference point with a drop, and they drop it and it rolls closer to the hole, but still in a situation that would be allowed within the rules because it crossed the way up there like in the penalty area. But where the ball strikes the ground is going to create a reference point, which creates the relief area. The ball must be played from the relief area under no other circumstances. So if the ball goes forward and gets out of that relief area, the player must redrop.
So the lady that dropped properly along the line, she hits her next shot into the water, into the penalty area.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if she decides to play stroke and distance,
Uh-huh.
does she drop within the previous?
Stroke and distance, she's going to come back and play from her last spot she played from, but she gets a club length from that last spot. It's different now. Okay? So the question is, if a player is proceeding under stroke and distance, okay, what do we do in 2018? It's got to be that same spot we played from, because we always had a discussion, well, what if it's in the divot? You know, we've talked about that before. 2019, when you come back and play stroke and distance, you're creating a reference point, which was the point that you last played from, or an estimated spot if you're not exactly sure, and you get that one club length relief area, and you're going to drop it in there. So you proceed under the last thing your ball did, to answer your question. Okay, so yeah, you can keep that same relief area because it does have a reference point. You're fine. It's an option. But coming back in stroke and distance, it's basically going to be the same thing. Yeah.
Does every point of reference have a club length distance?
With the exception of lateral relief and an unplayable ball, yes. The two club, yes. It's either one club length or two club length, depending on the rule.
The reference point plus at least one club length, is that correct?
It depends on the rule. So, and the question is it one club length or at least one club length? Well, at least one club length is kind of a tricky word there. Your reference point and no more than one club length. Yeah, because you're creating a relief area to play from. So, yeah, it's not at least, it's no more than.
Can you explain the reasoning why USGA decided on one club length, two club lengths, as opposed to just making all relief areas a certain number of club lengths?
Right, and the question is why did the USGA say have some one club length and some two club length? And from what I understand, when I talked with David Stabler about a similar question, is it is a common thing to have a two club length relief, and they didn't want to get rid of it. Okay, one reason that I can come up with is lateral relief. Like, for example, if we're talking lateral relief from a red penalty area, a lot of these red penalty areas you might come up with have a lot of trees that are overhanging. Oh, like we might have the red line in here, but we might have some branches. Well, let's get them away from there. You know, so let the player have some relief from something like that. So, well, I think that we start to get into some liberties where if we get really pretty big, you know, areas. They want to keep the ball in a certain area and not make it super complicated. So that's kind of how I'd answer that. So.
Todd, under the old rule, it was like, okay, it's two club lengths if you're paying for it, taking a penalty. It's one if you don't.
Right.
It sounds like it's still kind of the same
Yeah,
thing.
I would agree.
Because if it's an unplayable or a red hazard,
Yep.
you're going to get your two club lengths. Is there?
Yep, I can't think of a situation. Yeah.
So it's really no difference.
No, it really isn't in that respect. The question that Pat brought up is if you're paying for it with a penalty, it was usually two club lengths. If it was free, it was usually one club length. And that, I think, still holds true. I can't think of a situation where you're penalized and you're only taking the one club length situation. So.
Speaking of logic, why, if you go a little bit above your knee, you probably got to leave, but why that? There's no advantage in dropping.
But they had to come up with something, and they had to define it. Okay, and so everybody played this, right? Yeah. Remember this? And then we went to this. We went to shoulder height. Now we're at knee height. So instead of knee height and above or knee height and below, we have to have it defined as knee height. And so, and the reason why people want to know why isn't the ball placed? You know, and this is a good time for me to address this a little bit. We still need some variance in your lie. We don't want the player, you know, just placing it like this. And this new rules change, and the rules since 2016 have been a very strong joint issue with the USGA and the RNA. The RNA did not want people placing the ball because they play a lot of match play, and they didn't want the opponent, like on the other side of the fairway, saying, well, what are you doing over there? So there had to be some variance in the drop, and they had to define it. So, all right, let's move along a little bit. I'm getting a little bit winded here on some of my answers. So, Again, the opposite margin relief is only a local rule moving forward. All right, so Jackie finds her ball in a yellow penalty area. She drops her original ball in the right way, which is the correct terminology moving forward for the rules of golf, the right way, but to a relief area for a lateral relief from a red penalty area. So she dropped it outside of where she was supposed to for the yellow penalty area, okay? She dropped it like 2 club lengths, which she's not allowed to do. She then accidentally kicks her ball. She replaces the kick ball, but before making a stroke, realizes the error of using the lateral relief procedure. She then lifts her ball and drops it in the right way into the correct relief area and plays from there. How many total penalty strokes for this procedure? This is one of my questions that I want you to pay attention to. How many total penalty strokes? Okay? 0, 1, 2, or 3? This might be the question I get all kinds of different answers. All right, so let's walk through it real quick. All right, so she drops her ball in the wrong area. Is the ball in play? Yes. Okay, she kicks it. Is that a penalty? Maybe. Maybe. If she plays it, she's going to be penalized. 1 penalty stroke for what? The penalty area. Don't forget the penalty area. That's right. When you get these types of questions, you've got to remember the penalty area relief. So 1 stroke for taking it out of the penalty area. Although she kicked her ball in play, that penalty goes away when she corrects the error of dropping in the wrong place under 14.5c, what I call the super eraser rule. Now, currently, if Jackie does this today, she's crazy for playing golf. It's cold. But currently, she gets a penalty for kicking her ball in play. Because like we talked about, even though she dropped it in the wrong area, the ball's still in play, and then she kicked it. She kicked her ball in play, even if it was an accident. But the new rules, when you're correcting your error, take away all those penalties, except for the penalty area. That penalty area always sticks. Okay? Does everybody get that? And this, I gave you guys this question because this was one I got wrong on the test. I forgot that there's a super eraser rule, so I ruled in 2018. All right, nearest point of complete relief we're talking about here is the points that we're going to create a reference point out of that comes from an abnormal course condition, a dangerous animal condition, which has its own definition now. It was an equity decision, but now it actually is in the rules of golf. Wrong green. Notice it's not wrong putting green now. The no play zone is a new term in the rules of golf. Basically, environmentally sensitive area is your example of that, but it is a term in the rules of golf now. And certain local rules. There's the situations that all clubs would have, like a temporary movable obstruction and so on and so forth. Okay? So it is the estimated point where the lie is going to be where the nearest to the ball's original spot, but not near the hole. So this player here, where is this player's nearest point of relief? It's going to be left. Yep. For a left-handed golfer, it's going to be on the other side, isn't it? Because that ball is in the middle of the cart path. So as a left-handed golfer, it's going to go the other way. Right? Okay. It's also in the required area of the course. So whatever rule you're operating under, it's going to say specifically in the rules that it can be dropped in the general area or a bunker. It'll say that. The rules are very clear about this now. It's not, we don't have to guess. And it's also where the condition does not interfere with the stroke where the player would have made if that cart path wasn't there. So this doesn't change. This is the same thing that we've talked about from 2018. Okay? And here's how we're going to drop. So this player was checking out all the different spots that the nearest point of complete relief would be, and we've determined it's going to be behind it. Okay, sometimes it's left, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's behind. So this has not changed from 2018. This is still the same. Okay, player does not need to simulate the stroke, but by taking an actual stance and swinging, but it's suggested that we do. So this is not a must, this is a should. Okay, as long as the player drops the ball in the correct area, the whole procedure of jumping through the hoops is not necessary. But it should be so that we can actually determine the exact relief area and everything. Okay? This has not changed either. The nearest point of complete relief is the particular condition and doesn't involve anything else around it. So where's this player's nearest point of complete relief going to be? Where he's measuring it right now. Absolutely. Oops. Let me go back to that.
Last
unless that's out of bounds. You're right. It won't play. He thought about it, didn't he? Yes, this looks good. Yep. Because again, sometimes the best option isn't the best relief option. So this is where, as an official, I would suggest to the player, don't lift your ball just yet. Let's figure out where it's going to be, where your nearest point of relief is going to be, and then we'll lift your ball if you want. Because sometimes playing it from where it lies. Okay, so if you take relief and then you have to take full relief in that situation. That has not changed. If you take relief and it's up against a different condition, then you can take relief from that condition. That has not changed. But if you have like two different conditions fighting for each other and you keep going back and forth, then the rules allow you to go find a spot that takes relief from the entire situation. That's not any different from a decision that was in 2018. Okay? And you'll find that these new rules actually have encompassed a lot of the decisions. Okay? And I mentioned that I was going to talk about the interpretation manual. Now's a good time to talk about it. You're really not going to dig into that very much at all. It's nothing like the decisions manual of 2018 and previous. The interpretations manual just kind of gives some clarity. But when I took my test, I didn't even use the interpretations manual. I just used the rules book. I still got a 97, so I was pretty happy with that. So you're not going to get in there other than if you want to see something that just kind of defines something a little bit more clear to you. It is not the same manual. Okay? Everything you need is in the new rules book, I promise you. I promise you.
When you're taking relief from, say, a cart path, you're still not required to drop in a hazard if that's the nearest point of relief, correct?
Correct. You do not drop into a hazard, which would be a penalty area in 2019. So, but we're still in 2018. It's okay to keep saying that. All right.
Now, will we get one of those interpretations?
We're not going to give them out to everybody, but you're welcome to get one from our website. We just don't need them. You're not going to use them, but we'll be happy to work with you on that. It's like $1 for shipping or something like that. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. All right, so we've talked a little bit about this already, but the simplified dropping and redropping procedures, it is dropping from knee height. Okay? This is dropping in the right way, and that's what it says in the rules, that we drop in the right way. There you go. So knee height varies from player to player. Okay. So when we're dropping from knee height, if a player gets down on a knee and drops, is that okay? Yes. Yeah. But we know what knee height is. If knee height is when you're standing, this is knee height. So if I get down on a knee, I might have to drop a little higher than this knee, but we're going to be very lenient on that. We're not going to have anybody sitting there with lasers trying to figure out if it's knee height. Again, the player's judgment is important here.
2 knees down and the guy's dropping.
I think he'd be fine. I think as long as he's dropping from knee height, I think he'd be fine. I really do.
No, I'm talking about.
Yeah, if the guy's knee is that far off the ground, okay. When he's standing, he's going to be a short player, but it's knee height when he's standing. So,
The height we're talking about.
right. So a taller person's going to have a drop. Now, people have also said in a couple things that I've talked to them about, well, I have to bend over a little bit. Yeah, you do. This is not knee height. You're going to have to bend over a little bit. Okay? But if you get it close, the rules say, fine, you're good. Okay? But it is knee height. It's not knee height and lower, not knee height or higher. Okay, club lengths. Here this just kind of confirms what we're talking about club lengths. This, again, club length is defined by the longest club in your bag. The reference point is where the ball crossed. And this doesn't change for a left-handed or right-handed golfer. Okay, this is where the ball crossed creates your reference point. Okay, here's the back on the line relief situation here. He's estimating, he's created his reference point right there. Even though he has a wedge in his hand, his club length is still a driver if he's carrying a driver. Okay? Yes, club length from the reference point. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a club length on the other side of the reference point, which does create a distance of 2 club lengths.
But he can still use the wedge if he so chooses.
Sure.
If he's inside along with it.
Yep.
He's definitely inside his driver.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can use any club in your your bag to measure if you wish, but your defined club length is your longest club in your bag. So as long as you get it inside of that longest club length, you're good.
I assume that's correctable if you drop it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But the putter, yeah. No putter. Exactly. As we mentioned before, your putter is not used as one of your longest clubs. It can't be used in measuring. Okay, when do we redrop? Okay, redropping is going to be very few and far between moving forward. Because of the dropping from knee height, we're not going to have any situations. So what we're doing here is this player's taking relief from an abnormal course condition, as it is called in the 2019 rules. Okay, it drops and rolls out of that relief area that they're created. He's going to go to a different spot in the relief area, which is fine. It's rolled out of the relief area, 2 drops. So now he has to place it where it last struck the golf course. This is very consistent with what we're doing now, except it's now in a relief area. Okay, so that's the difference there. Okay. Now, substitution of a golf ball. We're going to allow it now in the rules. There was so many situations where you got penalized if you substituted a golf ball when taking relief, but now you're allowed to substitute a golf ball almost all the time. When taking relief, you are allowed to substitute a golf ball, whether it's penalty or free relief. Okay? You're not allowed to substitute a golf ball for putting. Okay? Or, so on and so forth. So that doesn't change. But when you're taking relief for a situation, you're allowed to substitute a golf ball. Okay? Okay. So we got an embedded ball that has a big hunk of mud on it. Okay? When you're going to take relief from it, one, you can clean it if you wish. You can. You can clean it. But you can also replace it. You can do both. And let's show you how the new rules work. You take that embedded ball, you throw the original one away, you substitute it with your brand new ball, you drop it, it goes out of the relief area. You can go get another new ball and drop it again. And it rolls out of the relief area. You can go get another new ball and place it. So anytime you're taking relief, you're allowed to substitute a golf ball. Makes sense, doesn't it? Why are we going to do that? So we're allowed to, anytime we want, substitute a golf ball. Here's a good example. A player has this ball on the cart path, and she takes relief. What happens to a ball that lands on a cart path? It gets scuffed. We're allowing the player to substitute the ball now. She looks at it. She's like, you know what? That's got a crap on it. One of my friends called that a Gorby. Anybody know what was a Gorby? Gorbachev had the mark there. And they called it a Gorby. I'm getting close to being able to show my Gorby. But yeah, you're taking relief. You're allowed to substitute a golf ball now. All right. These Todd questions are always fun. Todd's ball comes to rest on a cart path in the general area. He elects to take free relief without informing anyone or marking his ball. He lifts it and replaces it with a brand new ball by dropping it in the right way into the correct relief area. His ball, when dropped, strikes the ground in the relief area, then his foot, and comes to rest in the relief area. He plays his ball from there. How many total penalty strokes? What do you guys know about Todd questions? There's usually no penalty. I'll throw some curveballs at you throughout the day. Yes, no penalty. I'm allowed to replace it. The ball hits my foot after it strikes the penalty area. Fine. No penalty, as long as it stays in the penalty area. Okay? I don't have to mark it because I'm not replacing it. I don't have to tell anybody I'm going through this procedure. Okay? All those things are not required by the rules of golf. So, 14.3C1. All right, any questions on that one? All right. Let's talk about the unplayable ball. The new bunker relief option. Now, the unplayable ball options are still the same as they were in 2018, but they've added this one for a bunker. Okay. So this player decides the ball is unplayable. Okay. To get this ball out of the bunker, you have to use the back on the line relief. You can't just take 2 club lengths sideways. You have to go back on the line. So that's what this player's doing here. Going back to that 40-yard pitch shot that he's so good at. Marks his reference point, and he's going to drop it in that relief area. So if his tee shot lands in that bunker, 1, he's going to drop, 2, 3, playing 4. It's a 2-stroke penalty to do this. Okay? Pretty straightforward. But again, you can't use the 2 club lengths option to get you out of the bunker. It's got to be back on the line relief. A player doesn't have to declare the ball unplayable like verbally. He can be proceeding underneath it.
My question was, you're not sure if you want to do it or not.
Okay.
He drops it in the bunker, which is the one stroke,
Right.
but now it's a bad Friday. Can he then use that one? Or is it
No. Okay. The question is, if a player takes an unplayable relief in a bunker, drops it in the bunker, and it becomes a fried egg, he's like, well, wait a minute, that two penalty option sounds better now. No, because his ball's back in play. He can proceed under the unplayable again, but it's going to be a total of 3 if he takes it out of the bunker. Yes, good question. So once you proceed and get your ball back in play, you're done. All right.
They complicate that by not allowing the two clubs
As far as
as an unplayable line.
as far as getting it out of the bunker,
Yeah, an unplayable line.
yeah. So you,
Is that different than a regular unplayable line? Why did they complicate it by saying that can only be on the line and not two club lengths?
as far as why didn't they just say 2 club lengths if it gets you out of the playable, gets you out of the bunker? Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah, I mean it's virtually the same thing. The only thing that comes up to my mind talking about the rules is we still have to navigate the bunker. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Be able to go straight out sideways and place the ball on the free.
Right, yeah. I mean, it might be too much of an advantage. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I can come up with. The question, if anybody didn't hear that, is why the purpose of the rule of the 2 penalty strokes is only back on a line, not a club lengths. And like I said with my answers, I don't think that the player is fairly he's getting too much of an advantage if he goes sideways and places it on the fringe or drops it on the fringe. I think that's probably why. Unfortunately, I wasn't in that meeting. Otherwise, I can have a better answer for you. All right, so advice and help in talking about equipment, and then the stroke and distance we'll talk about briefly. Caddy's not allowed to stand behind the player to help with alignment, and the caddy may always mark, lift, and clean the ball on the putting green. We talked about that. Let's talk about some clubs and some damage. So damage for any reason, okay? That's a pretty bold statement, any reason. Okay? During a round, you can continue play with or repair it. Can we do that now? Not any reason. Okay? So when Doug misses that 1-foot birdie putt to tie me on the 18th hole, and slams his club down and breaks it, he can still have the putt for the halve and still use that broken putter. But if he uses it today, he's disqualified. So using a damaged club for any reason is allowed in the 2019 rules. A little flip to that. Replacement is allowed only if the player is not responsible for the damage. Todd takes a swing, follows through, hits the tree, club breaks. Can I replace it? In 2018, yes. In 2019, no. No. Okay? You can only replace a club if somebody else damages it in 2019. This is one of those pace of play things. They don't want slowing up play, from what I understand. So this is one of the situations in the new rules that something that wasn't a penalty now is a penalty. Not everything is just, all cake and ice cream. So
the follow-through then, he is responsible for that damage?
absolutely. The player on a normal stroke, and we talk about this, if you make a normal stroke today and you break your club, in the normal course of play is the terminology, you're allowed to replace it. 2019, we do not replace any club that is damaged by the player for any reason. Again, any reason is the term. Yes, you can still continue to use any damaged club for the remainder of that round. Not responsible would be like Doug ran over my club in a cart. That's the player's responsibility. He made a stroke. Yeah, so if the club head comes off because of the player making a stroke, no replacement. So not responsible is not English, if you see what I'm saying there. Okay. Distance measuring devices are permitted by the rules of golf now, but you can prohibit them by local rule, which I believe the Open Championships will still do.
I assume you still cannot use this measuring device that determines...
Slope, yes, slope is still not allowed. Yeah, believe it or not, there's very little change to abnormal equipment or unusual equipment. Very little change. Okay, here's the local rule for the stroke and distance. That's a good little thing that the USGA gave me as far as their video. I'll try to explain it to you without the audio here. So again, this is a local rule that your club may put into place. It is not a rule of golf. If you lose a ball or a ball goes out of bounds, you're going to estimate the spot where it went out of bounds or estimate where you think it's lost. For example, this player is estimating that his ball is lost in this bush. Even though he can't find it, this local rule is saying we have a reference point now. This is where we think it is. Okay? So he's going to find that reference point, define how far it is from the hole. Let's just say 100 yards for simplicity. We're going to measure this point 100 yards from the hole in the fairway, and then we're going to give that player another club length over this way. And it's a large relief area. So anywhere you can see on that side of the line, inside the lines, and outside the line. He can go back as far as he wants. 2 strokes. I'm sorry? You're going to take the reference point here of where the ball is, line it up with the flag stick to get a distance, 100 yards. Now we're going to move to a spot in the fairway that's 100 yards away, no longer lining up with a flag stick, but the same distance of that.
Basically anywhere in the fairway 100 yards away?
On the edge of the fairway. But you're going to stay in that club length area. Yeah, we're not going to let you go over to the other side. So, again, this is a local rule. It's a 2-stroke penalty. And I'll be happy to talk with everybody about that specifically afterwards if your club wants to institute it, which we're going to suggest that all clubs use this for normal play. And I will be sending out some information to all the clubs with that of how to put it into your hard card. But again, it's not a rule of golf. Quick question?
1 club length in the fairway or 2 club lengths in the fairway?
I believe it's 1. Is it 2? Is it 2? I haven't even looked at the local rules yet. So it's 2 club lengths from that point. Lost ball or out of bounds. 2 shots. So basically the 2 shots, what does the 2 shots do? It makes it seem like you hit your provisional into play, is what it is. It does not give a player an advantage. So if you hit a ball out of bounds that's 100 yards from the hole, it crosses the white line 100 yards from the hole, we're going to let that player drop 100 yards from the hole in the fairway as if they played their provisional here, 2-stroke penalty.
So if you institute this rule as a local rule, and you hit your tee ball, and hit it straight into right next to the tee,
Right?
you got to take a drop there instead of just getting hit by another ball.
No, it's an option. It's not required. This is a local rule that is an option. It is not a requirement. So.
Okay, is this just tee shots, or is it any time you get it out?
Anytime.
Okay, example, you hit a tee, or you hit your tee shot, you hit your second shot, you hit it over the green, it's OB. Where are you going to drop? You go back there, you get.
That's a good question. So what he said is if we go over the green and out of bounds, okay, and we can't find a spot in the fairway to drop it because it doesn't make sense because you can't find it because.
Let's say you're 180 yards out, you hit it over the green.
Right, and it goes out of bounds 20 yards behind the green and there's no reference point. It might not be an option. In this case, you might not have the local rule option to drop it somewhere. Okay, it's the same thing like a lateral water hazard currently. No, no, no. There's no equidistant in this situation. Yeah. So the question basically is, what do we do if there's no place to drop because of a reference point not existing in the fairway? You don't have that option now. Like, for example, like I was going to say, a lateral hazard, if you go behind a green sometimes, and I always use 15 at Oakwood as a good example, if everybody's familiar with that hole, behind the green is the 16th tee, and then left behind that is a lateral hazard. If your ball goes into that, the 2 club length option is always near the hole. So you don't have that option. You're not, just because it's one of the rules of golf, you still can't drop closer to the hole than where your ball crossed. So there are sometimes a relief option doesn't exist. It's just not there. But again, the local rule, I'll dive into it a little bit deeper before I get that information out to the clubs because I want to be 100% accurate on what I say about it. And I'll let you guys know about that too.
So, just one point of clarification. I thought I read somewhere that it's not only the fairway, but closely known area. So if the equidistant puts you somewhere
To a fairway height or something like that. Yeah,
closely known area.
yeah, yeah. It's going to be the fairway height grass. Yeah, exactly. So,
Didn't that video imply that the relief area was anywhere with either side of the line, not necessarily in the fairway? You
Right.
only go as far as the fairway.
right.
So if you go out of bounds and you're 20 yards from the green, wouldn't your relief area almost be on a 20-yard, the first 20-yard point you get that's in play?
Well, in play is going to be what are we going to have to define?
On the course.
Yeah, well, the local rule has a fairway. It specifically says the fairway. And so what's going to happen is you're going to find that point, which might be 60 yards from your out of bounds. I mean, you may have hit a stice shot and gone way right, but we're going to use that as a reference point, and that creates your relief area, which is going to be massive and goes back as far as you want. So, but again, let's if you want to talk local rule, let's talk about it afterwards, because again, it's a local rule. I don't want to get too wrapped up into it. Is it 2 stroke or 2 club lengths? Or-
Yeah, it is, but there's also a diagram in here for if the ball does go out of bounds behind the green.
Okay, perfect. We got a diagram in this book that I will be happy to send to everybody with an email. So make sure you have your email to me. So I'll get that going. So, all right, let's talk about the quiz. Did everybody get the quiz? All right, question number 1, which of the following, possibly multiple, is a penalty? All right, during the backswing, Doug's club head touches the sand in a bunker. Penalty or no penalty? It is a penalty. We still can't touch the sand on the swing on the way back. That's the current rule, and it's also the rule in 2019. That'll be a penalty both ways. 12.2b. Doug drops the ball correctly, but it rolls and hits the club he's using to measure the relief area. He plays the ball from the relief area. I think I've discussed this. Is this a penalty? No. Ball is in play since it hit the course first, then the club. 14.3c1 talks about that. He strikes equipment or the player after it strikes the course, no penalty. But we have to play it from the penalty area. That's important. That's one thing that we want you to start taking away from dropping is we play the ball from the penalty area. Doug replaces his driver after breaking it on a stroke. He started with 14 clubs. I think we discussed this. Penalty or no? Penalty. You cannot replace that club. He broke it. He damaged it on a stroke. Sorry, Doug. Don't swing so hard. Doug uses the putter he broke on a tree for his final stroke of the round. No penalty. The broken club may continue to be used for the round under Rule 4.1a2. No matter how he breaks it there, not a problem to use the club. 2018 DQ, 2019 no penalty. Quite a big jump there. Doug's caddy marks his ball in the putting green without Doug's authority. You remember talking about this today? No penalty. It's expressly allowed by Rule 10.3b1. Any questions on 1? Okay, so if you look at the... Doug has an anger issue, which is why he's great for questions on quizzes. So, but if you guys will notice on the answer thing, I only answered the ones that are a penalty on A and C. So if you want to put down why it's not a penalty, I'll give you a moment to look at that. Lynn?
You're also allowed to fix a club. I think we talked about that earlier.
Yep, you're allowed to repair a club.
So what if you repair it and then you decide you want to repair it better than you repair it?
If you want to keep repairing it, as long as you're repairing it, I think you're going to be fine. So during the round is a problem currently. But moving forward, you're allowed to repair it, provided you don't repair something that was broken before the round. So you can work on it. And you also can't use materials that you go get. You can't go get a shaft. You have to use the original shaft, the original grip, the original club head. You have to use the original components of the club. All right, then move on to question number 2. In stroke play, Jackie is standing directly behind her partner Bailey on extension of her line of play when Bailey is taking her stance and addresses the ball in the teeing area. Jackie moves off the line and Bailey makes her stroke. What is the ruling? General penalty under Rule 10.2b4. When Jackie was taking her stance and Bailey got behind her, boom, penalty. Can't undo it, can't get out of it.
That paragraph only talks about restriction on a can you stand behind.
And it also includes partner. Remember what I talked about, rules 1 through 20? Even though it doesn't say the word partner, it includes the partner in these rules. It will include the partner. Same status as the caddy. Yes. And that's a good question. In the rules specifically, it says that the caddy cannot do it, but it also includes the partner. Remember, rules 1 through 20 also include your partner in these situations. Okay? It may be a little confusing, but you'll get used to that, I promise you. Any other questions on 2? In 3, stroke play, Todd shanks a bunker shot that hits his own golf bag. What is the ruling? Todd question, no penalty. Play the ball as it lies. The new rules allow for accidental deflections to not be a penalty. So if it strikes you or your equipment or your partner or your caddy, no penalty. As long as it's accidental. Okay, question number 4. This is one of my favorite questions that I've had so far. In stroke play, Bailey's tee shot hits her golf cart and comes to rest in the teeing area. Which of the following, possibly multiple, are correct? So is her striking her golf cart a penalty? No. So all the options. She can do every single one of those things that's listed on your quiz. She can re-tee it. She can substitute her ball. She can move the ball and put it in a different spot in the teeing area. The teeing area rules are very, very different than they used to be. Okay, when your ball's in the teeing area, you can do whatever you want, really. But it's very rare, because especially Bailey doesn't hit a tee shot that crooked. So, but if your ball is in play in the teeing area rule is in play. And it doesn't say anything like you have to play the ball as it lies. It allows you to do these rules. So look at Rule 6.2, and it says you're allowed to do all these different things.
Does that mean any teeing area?
Your teeing area. The teeing area. The teeing area. The word the, or the, as we pronounce it. That's very important. So if she's playing the blue tees, hits a cart and goes into the white tees, the teeing area of the white tees, where is her ball? In the general area. It is not in her teeing ground. Okay? There are 2 spots in the golf course that use the word the. What are they? The teeing area, the putting green, which means specifically to that player and that hole being played. So the other teeing grounds or boxes, or however you want to put them, are not areas as far as the rules of golf are concerned. Good question. So any of those things she can do. Which of the one is following is completely true with respect to relief for an embedded ball in the general area? The answer is B. The player must drop in the relief area and in the general area. Okay, so when a player's taking relief for an embedded ball, we have a reference point that's right behind that pitch mark, plus the 1 club length, which creates the half moon, and drop it anywhere in that area, but it has to be in the general area. Can't drop that in a bunker, can't drop that on a putting green, a teeing area, or a penalty area. It specifically says in the rule you have to stay in that area.
Why drop and not place?
The rule says drop, because it's not a specific place. Because remember, why are we not placing this ball? Because we're taking relief from an area, and we're not putting it back in the same spot. So when we're taking a drop somewhere that's not a specific spot, it's going to be always dropped, and if it's a specific spot, it's always placed. It's always placed.
The ball is in a specific spot.
Read the rule. Read the rule. The specific spot, the ball is embedded, but our reference point becomes the spot right behind it, so it's not the exact spot anymore, and then you get the 1 club length. But good question. Even though we know exactly where the ball is in an embedded ball, the reference point is a different spot than the original position.
Now, the reference point is 1 club length back, but I'm still confused.
Huh?
Now,
The relief, the reference point is direct. The reference point is directly behind the embedded ball, and then you get 1 club length from the reference point, any direction, no near the hole, which produces 1 club length this way, 1 club length this way, and then your half moon. So it is 2 club lengths, but it's 1 club length from the reference point. Everything's from the reference point. Start from the reference point and give yourself the 1 club length. Because remember, we're playing from this relief area now. So the relief area is defined by 1 club length, and it's just, think of that club length as having paint on it.
well, I understand.
And then,
That's not the way they say it. They say 1 club. They show you 1 club length from that.
right.
Way. So that relief area is 2 clubs.
Yeah, if you measure it, sure, it is.
When they play this game with a 1 relief, it's then tricking me again. It's 2 clubs, it's not 1.
It's 1 club length from the reference point. You got to realize it's the reference point. I know what you're saying, but the reference point is defined as the spot where you take relief from. And once you get that concept, you'll get it. I promise. Yep.
The key thing in that one is the relief has to be in the general area.
Yes,
And it's quite possible there will be no general area.
it is possible, but unlikely.
I can think of a lot of places.
Well, I mean, if the ball lands right next to, like a penalty area, sure, but it's not going to happen all the time.
No, if it, like number 10 at Falcon Ridge has bunker right in front of it, and if you hit into that wall,
Right?
your relief area is right behind the ball, and then your relief area
Right.
is in the bunker.
Right.
But the rule says the relief area has to be in the general area.
Right. Let's look at the definition of the reference point for that rule and see if it allows us to go back behind the bunker and create the reference point behind the bunker and then give us our relief area. We'll look into that afterwards.
The form I'm on says that that's a problem, and the USGA knows it's a problem. They don't know
Okay.
what to do about it yet.
Perfect. Yeah. And we'll look into that. And so we'll look into that specifically because if a ball that is embedded into the face of a bunker, if it's not in the sand, is not in the bunker, it's in the general area, which you're allowed relief for the embedded ball rule, but where are we going to take relief? And this was actually brought up at our our seminar in Atlanta, and I don't even remember what we talked about it, because I think that it was a similar situation where we were just talking back and forth and didn't come up with an answer. So we'll look into that one.
So what is the thinking that you can't repair the pitch line?
That's improving the areas of the condition, the conditions of the stroke. That would be same thing as if you're dropping.
Even though you may not be involved in anywhere.
Right. So why can't we fix the pitch mark is the question, and because we would be improving the areas of the conditions of the stroke, which is the same thing if you're taking relief anywhere. If you're taking relief anywhere, you're not allowed to fix the divot or anything like that. So, all right, let's go to the true or false here real quick. Your partner may drop your ball for you, and you may play it without penalty. True or false? True in 2019, false in 2018. Rules 22.2 and 23.4 authorize this. And again, if you get a lot of these questions wrong today, don't worry about it, because these were all over the rules book. We haven't even talked about any of these things, but they're just kind of to open up your eyes of how the new rules are working. So your partner may act for you. He can drop your ball for you. He can mark your ball for you, so on and so forth. Dropping a ball from knee height or below is the new requirement. If anybody gets this wrong after today, I know we talked quite a bit about this. False. The requirement is exactly knee height. Okay? In the word exactly, player's judgment. Just do it as best you can, no problem. If one of your knees is lower than your other one, use the low one. I don't care. A putt striking a flag stick in the hole is not a penalty, but you must play the ball as it lies. True or false? True. Okay. A putt refers to a stroke hopefully made on the putting green. I probably should have said that a little clearer, but any stroke made is going to do that. If you purposely move it to influence the golf ball or do something like that, yes. Yeah. So if you intentionally hit the ball with a flag stick, then we no longer have an accidental motion. So, D, you may drop a ball where it went out of bounds for a two-stroke penalty. If there's the local rule, we don't want to talk about the local rule yet. False, out of bounds is still stroking distance. Rule 18-2B, but see the new local rule. That would be within the relief area more than likely of the local rule. But rules of golf say no, out of bounds is still out of bounds. There was talk about making out of bounds like lateral relief. The USGA said no, RNA said no, they kept it as out of bounds. Stroking distance. An aeration hole in the putting green may be repaired. True or false? We talked about that. False. Rule 13.1C2 prohibits aeration holes from being repaired. And one of the greatest things about our new rules book is there are examples in there. It's not just some words that we have to determine what it's about. This rule actually says aeration holes are not allowed. So you'll find lots of examples that will help you determine whether or not a rule applies, which is much better. Lots of diagrams and so on and so forth. And F, if a spot for a ball to be replaced is unknown, it will be dropped on that estimated spot. False. It will be placed on that estimated spot. So if we know a spot, we place it. If we don't know a spot, we're going to estimate it and still place it. But if it's going to be dropped in a relief area, that's when we drop it. Okay? And make sure you understand the difference there. If we know the spot for the ball to go, specific spot, we're going to place it. Okay. All right, one more. In moving a loose impediment, the player can no longer get a penalty if the ball moves. False. We're still on the hook for certain situations. Could be true, right? But it's a statement of this. Generally is going to say false. But there are exceptions. There are times when moving a loose impediment is not going to get you a penalty. But in general, moving a loose impediment, be careful. The rules still aren't that kind to where you can just do whatever you want. All right, that takes care of us for today. We just, like I said, just kind of hit the major changes of the rules, and I had some good questions. We will specifically get into rules one by one starting next Tuesday right here. We'll do rules 1 through 4. We'll talk like we have in the past, just straight through it. We'll go through each specific rule and make sure everybody is clear on that.